People who have been to high school 10 years reunions, what were some surprises, shocks for you? The mom of a friend of mine met a woman called Anna at a reunion. She wasn't sure who she was. Apparently they had been pretty good friends back then. Her name was David back then though. I was the biggest loser in high school but was the coolest methodiker at the reunion. Also the jocks who bullied me were janitors at the event. Also that popular cheerleader became fat and ugly. I work for a company that puts together high school reunions and have worked at over 50 of them in my time there. 10-year, high school all over again. You can tell who was popular, and you can see most people fall back into their cliques. There is always someone who knows no one and feels awkward trying to find someone to talk to. 20-year, people have kids. It's mostly popular kids now and ones that were really involved in school activities meeting their old friends. There's less people awkwardly walking around alone. 30-year, it's whittled down to popular kids and student government kids now. Women desperately trying to reclaim their youth and show how young they still look. If you didn't know everyone was in the same age range, you would think there was a 20-year range of ages. 40-year, some of the ladies try to age gracefully and still look good, while others just try to look as young as possible. Men showing off new younger wives, and talking about all the people who have died. Still student government and popular people. 50-year, less of an attempt at reclaiming youth. A lot of talking about who has died and grandchildren. None. People got fat. The people you wanted to talk to, you already do anyway. Not my high school reunion, but my dad's. A couple years after my parents got divorced, my dad goes to his high school reunion and runs into his prom date. They catch up. She'd been the one that got away and all. And it turns out she's also recently divorced from husband number 2. Some things don't work out like you wish they would. You know? They agree to meet for drinks and dinner again soon. And they do. And then more dating. And then next thing I know I'm spending every other weekend driving with my dad across the state to hang out with her. But it's not bad. She's friendlier than the other girls he'd tried dating. And she's getting my dad to be more relaxed and not drink as much. I leave for college and they get married. He and his bandmates decide to get the band back together for a reunion tour at the next class reunion. The following summer reunion, the band show was a hit. It was like seeing my dad as a teenager. They caused trouble all weekend lighting off fireworks and drinking, and my grandma covered for them. No officer. Haven't heard anything. Just playing solitaire on my computer. They played all night long and decided it's going to be a yearly thing. So many of their old classmates stayed in the area and they loved playing and hanging out. My dad got the girl, got the band back together, and got his life back in line thanks to a couple class reunions. It wasn't a 10-year reunion, mind you. Sometimes you'll have to wait a little bit longer to get the happy ending you're hoping for. There was a discussion brought up about how you don't remember the nice things done to you in high school, but those mean, disgusting things comments haunt you forever. One of the popular girls said, "I'm glad I never made anyone mad in school. I was friends with everyone." One of the most quiet, shy girls from school slams her drink and then pounds the glass on the table as loud as it. "Are you ducking kidding me? You were the single most evil cunt in the entire school. You tortured me every single day with your snide comments about my looks and style. I've hated you every day since." The popular girl looked around the room like, who's this itch talking to every single person there, started sharing horror stories about the popular girl. She left in tears. Facebook has decreased the surprise of high school reunions. Not me, and not 10 years. But, my dad went to his 30-year high school reunion. A woman he had had a one-night stand with right after graduation approached her. "Hey, remember me?" Him. "Oh, yeah. How's it going?" Her. "Good. We have a 29-year-old daughter. I have her phone number if you want to call her." They had slept together right after graduation. He then moved away. She got pregnant, put the girl up for adoption and never told him. The daughter had just found her birth mother right before the reunion, so she figured that was as good a time as any to let him know. She brought a photo album of her growing up and gave it to my dad. The girl looked exactly like my dad when she was a teenager, and exactly like my dad's sister as an adult. So there was no question it was his kid. His next question: "Oh my god, am I a grandfather?" Her. No, she's a lesbian. Him. Oh thank God. Probably the only time you'll hear that response to finding out their kid is gay. It was hard on my family at first. It all happened before my mom and dad had met, but it was still difficult coming to terms with it. We decided to meet her and see what was up. She is awesome. Like really one of the coolest people I know. Great sense of humor. She is now a part of our family. TLDR. Dad finds out about a daughter at a reunion. Everything goes better than expected. That people my age are dying. People broke out into their lunch tables they sat at during HS. Odd. My surprise was not being invited, but seeing pictures from the event on a friend's Facebook. Nothing like being reminded of how easily you are forgotten. Nothing. Facebook exists. And if you aren't the type of person to be Facebook friends with people from your graduating class, then you aren't the type of person to go to a 10-year reunion. I showed up only to find out that I never graduated. Since Facebook, high school reunions are stupid. I went to mine and I was all like, Corey, what have you been up to dart since you pushed up 225 4 times at the gym last night? Beast mode? Gross point blank said it perfectly. It was as if everyone had swelled. That about 90% of those people had not changed. That they were going to charge $60 per person to go. We were all set to go with an old friend. Met at his house when we found that out. That was $120 for my wife and I. We decided to stay at his house and get drunk instead. I never liked those people anyway. My mother had once been to one. There was this really shy girl. She wouldn't talk to anyone or do anything. When she went, they found out she was a prostitute. How mellow and normal most people became. People I thought were jerks or enemies turned out to be surprisingly nice and awesome. Except for the loud preppy kids. Most of them stayed obnoxious. How busted some people looked at 28. Getting fat isn't a surprise. Neither is going bald or coming out of the closet. But I was amazed at how many people looked like they had a lot of hard miles on them. Also at reunions, remember that I used to have a crush on you really means I would duck you right now. It's like there was an eating contest after high school, and everybody won. It was anticlimactic. Hardly anyone showed. 2 years later, I joined Facebook and now I never need to see those people in person ever again. It sucks when you realize how many people from your graduating class are now deceased. My brother went to high school with someone who eventually became a Major League Baseball player. He told me that this guy was a douche in high school, and then at the 10th he flew in by helicopter to show off. I didn't recognize anybody. I thought I must be in the wrong place, but my name was on the list. I thought I recognized a few names, but wasn't 100% sure. There was some donuts and coffee there, and I helped bring the DJ a glass of water. Jamie had a chance. Well, she really did. Instead she dropped out and had a couple of kids. Mark still lives at home cause he's got no job. He just plays guitar and smokes a lot of pot. Jay committed suicide. Brandon OD'd and died. This really popular guy actually turned out to be gay. His boyfriend was pretty cool and gave me some advice of how to make some money making adult entertainment. Me and my friend said why not. Comical hijinks ensued. Cue romantic epiphany. Now we're happily together. The prom queen now weighs 200 pounds and has 4 kids. Tragic. She used to have 6 kids. I am the only male from my graduating class that is not dead, in jail, or on probation. They couldn't hold a reunion. Mine passed a few years back, and was very interesting. Few surprises and shocks observed. How many people still looked physically the same as they did 10 years ago, just aged. How many couples there were. Many who never dated in HS. Kids everywhere. How much of an impact I had on my class. People recognized me without a second glance. I changed my dress style, haircut, etc. Since HS completely. How many people who were complete screw-ups and duck-ups in HS turned out okay with decent jobs. I didn't make it to mine, but I heard all about it from a friend. What surprised me was who already had children. Not the ones who had planned on being mommies by now, and who hated their careers that they had been working so hard towards in high school. I have to include myself in that. But I had company. Nobody had gotten super fat or even looked much different, just a little older. I think the funniest thing I found out is that the self-proclaimed virginity thief from high school is now a first grade teacher. Edit. Before anyone else PMs me about potential pedophiles. It was a girl who had this nickname. It'll be alright when I go. I don't have a fancy job. Or millions, but I don't have a drug addiction, unintended children, and I've not died of an overdose. So with regard to many of my schoolmates, I'm pretty successful. I went from someone in HS who felt he always had to hide, afraid I'd be embarrassed or made fun of, to someone in my adult life who was successful and confident. Yet at my HS reunion I still felt like I didn't belong. Honestly, it was a bit jolting because I felt I had changed so much, but yet it didn't matter a bit. You always think if I could go back and relive those days. But my conclusions was that I'd still hate HS and the mentality of kids that age. Went to my reunion even though I dropped out 2 years before graduation. Not exactly sure why I went since I had only kept in contact with one person after I left. I figured I was a nobody that wasn't noticed in HS. I wasn't a loser nor a popular kid. I was just a face in the crowd. That's what I thought. Anyway, almost everyone recognized me. To my own surprise, I recognized and remembered the names of most of them as well. I even got complimented for being the friendliest person they remember. That's coming from all the cliques that existed in HS. Skaters, jocks, goths, nerds, etc. Apparently, I talked to anyone and everyone, and didn't care who they associated with. All in all, a good experience, and I walked away with a few new friends. My experience was that every girl I knew in high school that was still single wanted to bang. That's right, every one of them came to this thing looking to get laid. Weird night. All those people I thought were ambitious and had plans to change the world never left town, except maybe to commute to the community college the next town over. These guys who showed up who used to be total freaks, and this girl who used to have this messed up back and a back brace who was kind of a rich too. We used to call her the aluminum monster. Got really drunk and did this weird dance in front of everyone with some old guy. It was weird. Funny story. At my 10-year reunion I was talking with a group of people. Well, mostly just listening because I'm shy. We got on the topic of their old boyfriends and who dated whom in high school. Well, there was this douche sitting there saying really mean things about his high school girlfriend, who is a good friend of mine. I spoke up saying, "Don't you remember? We used to date. You were really mean to me, etc. We didn't date. I have better taste." He got really flustered and tried to backpedal and apologizing. All the while his current girlfriend is shooting daggers out of her eyes. Finally I was like, dude, I'm just ducking with you. You didn't even talk to me in high school. He left shortly after that. Not much changed. I went expecting everyone to be totally different people, or to be in drastically different walks of life from where I thought they'd be after high school. But it was pretty much like walking back in time 10 years. The biggest divide was between those who had kids and those who didn't, and it became more apparent as the reunion went on. The childless ended up at the bar or around the tap more often, while those with kids formed their own clique. And, just like high school, my close friends and I peeled off from the larger group and went off and did our own thing once we realized that we didn't really want to talk to the rest of them as much as we thought we did. I haven't been to mine, but I seriously hope for the best to have happened to each and every one of the people that I'll run into at my reunion years from now. None of this. He was a douche in HS and how he works for a $1.97 hour job because he sucks lol angst that some man children seem to have. Ask the people around work if the 10-year was worth it. They said, no, everyone's still trying to figure things out and haven't changed much. But don't miss your 20-year reunion. Everyone's got kids or divorced and have drastically changed. Not me, but my mother. My mom was sitting at a bar at her high school reunion and saw women who looked really familiar. My mom yelled across the bar to her, "Are you Craig's sister?" Craig being a high school jock that dated my mom's best friend. The lady replied, "No, I'm Craig." I have always wondered, how do they track down all the people to inform them a reunion is happening? Surely a lot of them have moved several times and even live in different parts of the country world. It's not actually a surprise, but I had to go with my stepdad. Yes, my mother married one of my classmates. With the amount of girls that went to my high school that got pregnant before graduation, I have to imagine my 10-year reunion will look like a ducking Chuck E. Cheese. My dad went to his 50-year school reunion last year. When I asked him afterwards how it was, he said, "Waste of time. The people I liked at school I had kept in touch with, and the people I didn't like at school were still wankers." My username comes from my 10-year high school reunion. I was nervous about seeing how much more successful and attractive all of my old classmates were, so I did what I do best and made up a bunch of fake business cards. I handed everyone I met a business card that said wholesaler B/names wholesale bees, and under it said new bees, used bees, specialty bees, vaccines. So I guess it was surprising how easy it is to convince a bunch of people that I am a bee wholesaler. That the two girls who went into porn showed up. One of my classmates had been through 7 marriages in 10 years. Good question there. We're having ours this year, so it will be interesting. However, I have talked to some of them on Facebook and I can say that I never thought some of them would be parents. As it turned out, I was the drunkest, sleaziest piece of it there. I don't remember a damn thing, except that I felt just way more out of place around my former classmates 10 years after high school than when I was in high school. I don't know why. I wasn't really unpopular then. In fact, my class got along great. Small towns don't generally have so much of the cliqueness you see in movies. After I graduated school, that's when I got all elitist and smug and kind of became a bitter, bad person. Within 8 months, I was in rehab to quit the source. Went to an all-boys school. Turns out we had a girl in our year. I went to my 10-year. Damn. That was over 5 years ago, and my takeaway was that the jocks all got very bloated, puffy looking, and some of the nerdy chicks were suddenly a lot cuter than the women who were considered cute in HS. My favorite moment was when I actually heard one of the sad, bloated ex-popular dudes say, "Man, I made fun of Jessica W. in high school and now I want to get into her pants." It was like something out of a movie. Not my 10th, my 20th. I learned that I must have had a very different experience in high school than most people. 3 of 4 times people would walk up to me, know exactly who I was, know my name, recognize me, ask me about hobbies I had the time, remember details about my family, classes we took together, interactions we had in the past, who I used to hang around with, and all sorts of other things. I rarely recognize them and barely remember their name once they told me. Occasionally, once I was reminded, I could maybe remember a class we happened to have together. Other than that, I couldn't tell you one damn thing about them. My graduation class was maybe 300 people or so. Also, the girl I went to the prom with hit on me repeatedly and relentlessly, like a shark scene out of the movie Jaws. At one point I had to take her arm from around my waist and gently push her away. It was creepy. I did have an interesting conversation with a mostly Spanish speaking guy. We had worked together a little bit on the school newspaper. He said I was the first non-Latin he ever actually had any interaction with, and he thanked me for being kind to him. He said it meant a lot to him. I had no idea. I spent 2 hours boasting about working in a cattery to a woman who turned out to be a neurosurgeon. That one of my classmates invented post-it notes. When I was in high school, a group of us played cards every day in study hall. There were 3 guys and a girl. We'll call Sally. Sally, not a real name, was Indian, South Asian, and her parents were both professionals in town. Sally was totally normal, totally cool, good student, well adjusted, etc. She complained about her parents being too strict, but at 17, we all did. Then one day Sally didn't show up for study hall. After a couple days, word got around that Sally's parents, upon learning she'd been dating a guy in school without their permission, sent her to India for an arranged marriage. Of course, we were shocked and outraged and discussed heroic rescue plans. But in the end, There was nothing we could do about it, and life eventually went on. As the years passed after high school, I began to question the validity of the story altogether. Was it just the mildly racist assumption of the high school rumor mill? 10-year reunion rolls around, and much to my surprise, there's Sally. I went over to greet her, and as we talked, I couldn't resist asking her if the story was true. She laughed and said it was absolutely true. Her husband, who was with her that night, was the guy she'd been forced to marry. They had 2 kids. He was our age, and a dentist in Pennsylvania, I think. She said they were really happy, had a great family, and that while she agrees it's all totally crazy, everything worked out for the best. She seemed genuinely happy, and as I talked to the husband, he seemed like a genuinely nice guy. I'm still not sure what to think about the situation. Still, learning Sally's fate made the reunion trip worthwhile. People with wrinkles and grey hair already. It's 1995, but through a fisheye lens. Everyone married someone either a year ahead or a year behind, and still lives in my hometown. Sums up the creativity and ambition of my town and my generation.